All right, talking to Brett from Pallbearer. Brett, thanks for taking my call.
Oh, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. You've got a new album coming out very soon. We'll get to that in a moment. Just briefly touch on your last album. How did that one go for you?
Oh man, it was quite the undertaking to make. We really were we worked for quite a few months on that one, and the recording process was pretty intense and everything because we did it all ourselves in general and kind of it was very ambitious, let's put it that way, and our recording techniques and stuff. So we kind of worked ourselves to the bone on that one, but I think it turned out pretty awesome. Fun to play those songs live.
Yeah, excellent. Right, you've got the new one coming out very soon, which is called Forgotten Days. Now, I understand with this one you went out to Texas to record that. Tell us about that. How different was that for you?
Well, it was very different than anything we'd done before. With Heartless, our last album, we recorded it here in Little Rock. So we recorded in this pretty small studio that was, I mean, like a 10-minute walk from my house at the time where I lived. But it was not, I mean, it was pretty small. So, we could record during the day and then go home and sleep in our own beds and stuff. So going out to the middle of I mean, basically almost on the Mexican border. It was like the very southern end of Texas. So it was on Sonic Ranch is out on this big pecan orchard. So it's like acres and hundreds of acres of pecan trees, and then these studios scattered throughout this giant area. So that was really the only thing in this tiny, tiny town that we were in. So there's definitely no going back to our own, our own beds from there. But it was really cool. The studio was extremely well decked out. There was a sweet, old Neve desk that we recorded on. The actual desk that we used was this nice old, Neve desk. So it gave everything this really warm, analog desk sound. It was great.
There's nothing wrong with that old school sound. Beautiful and warm. Do you think recording in the way such as you did, almost like out of your comfort zone, did that sort of bring out anything musically that you think was hidden or maybe thought lost?
I think if anything, there was more brought out of us, but I think it was less because it was out of our comfort zone, but and almost because we were more comfortable in a way, because having Randall producing took a lot of the pressure off of us, because in the past we've kind of handled some of the minutia of how we produced everything ourselves, and we're not trained, none of us are trained producers or engineers. So it was all just us kind of reaching for these ideas that we had, but we have to experiment quite a bit to get them. But with having Randall on board, an expert in the kind of music that we were trying to make, the kind of sounds that we were trying to get, it took a lot of that pressure off. So if we wanted a certain sound, Randall would know an incredible way to get to it, and we didn't have to fumble our way around and try to find it ourselves. And so it let us focus a lot more on the performance aspect, which is honestly way more ideal for recording. Instead of having to juggle a bunch of different roles, we just had to focus on our individual performances, which was nice.
Yeah. Tell us about this album. There's 8 tracks on there. A lot of these songs seem very personal, even in some cases brutally so.
Yeah.
Are there any stories about any of these songs that you feel comfortable sharing?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, as always, the lyric duties are kind of split between Joe and me, and we typically sometimes we collaborate on lyrics, but we didn't do that on this album. But we all kind of contribute to everybody's songs for the most part. But whoever was the main songwriter on each song kind of like writes the lyrics for that song. So, most of Joe's songs, if not all, are about his like looking back at how his mother's like death around the time that we started her like illness and death around when we started Pallbearer, and how he had essentially spent the intervening time kind of just running from that. And I think he was kind of finally ready to sit down and like look at himself and see how that affected him. So obviously that's extremely personal, and I think some of his lyrics on this album are just like incredibly touching or like sad. I think we always try to find a sort of personal or human perspective for all of our songs. We're not really focused on fantasy type stuff. Even if we kind of take a sort of like fantastical approach to some of the lyrics, they're typically rooted in something that's real.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like to use the word journey, but Silver Wings, 12 minutes. That's a journey. Tell us about that one.
Man, that was the song. That was probably the song that I worked on the longest, because in general on this album I tried to stick as closely to like my initial creative spark when it came to a song. So whenever that initial idea came for each song, I tried to like basically finish it in as short a period of time as possible, as to kind of keep that rawness there. But Silver Wings, actually, I spent quite a bit of time on, and like rewrote the second half of the song probably 3 or 4 times. But I had like an epiphany moment where I was like, yes, I've got it. This is it. And then I rewrote the end of the song in like an hour, and it was exactly what it needed to be. But yeah, and I really like that one. It's it kind of has a lot of the same themes that it kind of appear throughout the album, about like transfiguration and inevitability of change, the passage of time, stuff like that. I think it's kind of a bridge. It's the longest song on the album, but it sits in the middle, which I think it makes an interesting bridge between different parts of the album.
To be fair, it's the longest song on most albums.
True.
Tell us about Forgotten Days. I noticed there's a new music video for that. Tell us about that song.
That song was well, obviously it's pretty relentlessly heavy, which I think in general on this album we were trying to just make it really heavy, because Heartless had some really, Heartless is heavy in a like faster sort of way, but we kind of wanted to incorporate some more just like sledgehammer sections on this album. And I'd say that song is pretty sledgehammer through most of the way through. But lyrically, that was kind of my grandmother has been going through like Alzheimer's for the last like 5 or 6 years, and it's kind of watching her identity and her like memories, kind of watching her lose those. It's been kind of, it's been something, it was remarkable, it's really sad, and honestly it's like terrifying to think that
it's hard to watch, isn't it?
It's really hard to watch. And if you're not a collection of memories and experiences, then what are you? So like if you start losing those, then you're losing yourself. It's like a slow, just like erosion of your life. But you experience it, but you're still alive as your life slips away. It's really horrifying, It is.
Yeah. All right. What happens now? You've got this album just about to come out. You probably can't go on tour yet. What's the story?
Well, nobody knows.
Have you got other work? This is one thing I'm asking bands lately. Have you got other work? Because COVID's affecting everybody, the bands especially, because they can't get out and tour. But have you got other work?
I do not. I went all in. Like I went to like 2 or 3 years of university years ago, but then like basically just we all went all in on this, and that's partly why we tour so much, is just because that's how we make our money. And we got to a point where we could make enough money to live off of, although meagerly, basically. But it's cheap. It's cheap to live where I live, so I've managed to be able to do it. So yeah, it's pretty scary. I have no prior training, and I haven't held another job in like a decade. So it's inevitable. Right now, I've managed to get by for temporarily, but I doubt that I will be able to do so through the period of time that it looks like it's going to be before we actually get to tour again. So I'm going to have to figure something out.
Let's hope it clears up soon. All right, so the album's coming out. We've got that slated for release the 23rd. How pumped are you?
Extremely. Man, we started. I mean, I'd be more pumped if we could actually go on the road afterwards. But I am really excited to like get it out there, and I'm pretty confident that that people are gonna like it. So I'm not too nervous or anything. But I mean, we recorded it like almost a year ago. We went into the studio early November of last year. So I've been ready for people to hear this thing. So I'm really stoked that it's gonna get out there finally.
Yeah, that must be a weird feeling, having an album like recorded like in the bag basically for that long.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for you guys to hear it, and that drags out to a year. Brett, anything else you wanted to run through?
Just hope everybody, checks it out, and it's something to do. No one can lie and say that they have a whole lot going on right now, so you don't have an excuse not to check it out.
Brett from Pallbearer, thanks so much for taking my call. Best of luck with your new album out on October 23, and hope the world opens up for you very soon.
Well, thanks, Mal. It's good talking to you, and all the best. Take care.